Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Welcome to the show, Renee. How are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for coming. It was so fun meeting at a book reading in Paris, and I got to learn more about your creativity and your work. But I always like to go back to the start of where you're from and what originally brought you to Paris.
Well, I was born and raised in New Jersey, but always coming into the city, into New York, with my mom, who had family here, and so she was always one to come here. So I always joked and said that I was a New Yorker in exile, and came to New York and have been living here. But there was a bit of a break in the mid 80s, around 85, when I was doing interior design work, but had done all of my art training in fine arts and in graphic arts, and fell into interior design and decided that I was young and having too serious a life and too many responsibilities. And if I wanted to pursue design, I thought, well, maybe I need a piece of paper, some sort of degree in that. Even though I had been doing it, like I said, I fell into it. Very strange life, the way I fell into things. But I found myself going to Parsons in Paris, and did my environmental design BFA there. And I had visited Paris before, but that kind of gave me a taste for it. And like I said, it's a crazy life that things just fell into place, and I found myself in Paris, at a place that, besides New York, was always very obsessed with. And I still have my encyclopedia from when I was a little kid, bookmarked with a little piece of newspaper, where the Eiffel Tower is. Always wanting to have gone there from before I even started school, looking at it. So that's, whatever. My journey, I guess, started subconsciously.
Yeah, it was long before you'd even know what Paris was. You were connected.
Right.
And so your
Right.
design career spanned 40 years. Talk more about that. You were working in interior design.
I went for an interview that I was totally unqualified for, in a way, because I never worked as a designer. The only thing that I did know, I knew how to read a blueprint. My dad did a lot of construction and remodeling and things in the house that I grew up in. And he was great, where, in the sense that even though I was a kid that grew up in, born in the 50s and a little, a babe in the 60s, it was never a thing of I'm asking about construction or how to read a blueprint and go away, you're a girl. He always answered my questions that I asked. And he would have all these blueprints and he would sit with me and explain everything. So when I went for this interview, I went with my portfolio of drawings, life drawings, some graphic design that I did, but I told them I knew how to read a blueprint and I know I could do this. And it led to my being hired. The man that interviewed me, his daughter was going to art school. I think he had some sympathy on, at that time, a kid trying to find some sort of creative way to pay the bills and put a roof over her head and feed herself. And my enthusiasm for design, and he hired me. And that's how I got into it. But 5 or so years later, I just, I was still in my 20s and felt like, wow, I was just having such a responsible, staid kind of life and thought, oh man, I had visited Paris and with a friend and fell in love with it and had already gone to Saint-Sulpice, which we'll talk about a little later, and has led to this project that I'm doing now in relationship to Eugene Delacroix's piece in Saint-Sulpice, his mural. And so I was in love with Paris and the place, and it happened that I found out that Parsons School of Design had a program in environmental design, which was different from what was happening in New York, which was more interior design. I felt like I, had already been working in it, so I wanted to learn how to build and be with architects, and that was the program in Paris. So I was accepted into it, moved to Paris thinking that, I'll live there for a year. They started me off, had given me credit for my foundation year, and started me off with my sophomore year doing my major, and got through that, was pretty successful with it. Got to stay there and finish my degree with the help of Parsons and the help of my parents and the help of finding odd jobs and things that I could make money at. And yeah, and that was it. And just really fell in love with Paris and felt like, I don't know, when I landed there to live, it, it sounds so crazy when I even hear myself say it, but I really felt like it was destiny,
Yeah,
that it was just timing, waiting for something to fulfill itself.
yeah, and I think that so many people can connect with that and feel that, and they arrive here and they're like, "Wow, I feel connected, and I have to be here." And especially artists, like creative people like yourself, and fast forward to today, where you're still working on this Delacroix project. You're writing, you're spending time with this mural titled "Jacob Wrestling the Angel," which is inside San Sulpice Church. If you guys have not been inside that church, it's beautiful. You have to go. But talk about that first experience of when you walked in that church and you saw this painting by Delacroix, and then fast forward to today where you're working on this new book.
Right. I like I said, I was working as a designer and was able to get some extended time off, for Americans, 2.5 weeks is extended time off. And went to Paris with a friend of mine, and he said, first place I'm taking you is to Saint-Sulpice, my favorite church, because there's just an energy about it, but you have to see Delacroix's murals. And we walked in, and I saw the murals that are there, and this one in particular, just it. I could only explain it as when you walk in a room and you see another human being, and it's this connection and everything from love at first sight and knowing it's going to be your best friend. And it was that kind of just being enamored with this piece. And just, sat with it, went back a few times while I was there to look at it again. And just knew that there was something there. There was something there for it to teach me. And that statement of it was there to teach me something, I had no idea what that was. It was just purely gut feelings. And that's kind of how I've always lived my life, is on gut feelings and just walking through doors. And it happened that with within about a year later, I found myself just with the opportunity to go to Parsons and completely change my life, give up my my job, and and just go and know that I there was something there besides doing my degree at Parsons. There was so much going on in my life at that time. I had always been a meditator. I had always been, from when I was a kid. It started with, believe it or not, pop culture. It started with seeing the Beatles go to India and George Harrison talk about meditation. And at about 11 years old or something like that, going to the library and finding the Bhagavad Gita and reading that, and just all of that. There's been this, not even, I want to say a parallel path with my my spirituality, my life, doing my art, but it isn't. It's all simultaneously working together. There's no delineation between my life, doing my art, and my spiritual path. It is just one thing. And yeah,
I think that a lot of like creatives feel the same way, like with spirituality and
right.
creativity. It's so connected, and like coming back to the painting, it's like you went there and you had this connection to it, and it didn't make any sense because you'd never been there. You didn't really know like Delacroix that well, and then all of a sudden you just are so touched by this work. And so where has that led you? Like, is this book going to be about how people are connecting with art and having these spiritual experiences through art?
Yes. Yes, that is really what it's come to now. It started, like I said, with this piece of, then once I got to Paris and was living there, the thing that, like I said, that led up to my sitting with this was that I really was committing to my Buddhist path. Buddhism really came into and evolved into my mind, my path, from looking at other Eastern religions and studying, and you know, being in New York, all these things that were available, um, looking at the ads in the back of the Village Voice and going to different meditation classes and things. And Buddhism, just that is where it resonated with me. So when I got to Paris and I started to sit with the mural, and we're talking about, this was really starting to sit with it in 1985. All I did was just sit with it. Sort of in the vein of thinking of like a mandala. Mandala is, as Westerners, we look at it as an art piece. But it's used to try to condense it and explain. You use it as, in a way, as a meditation tool. I don't mean to reduce it to that, but because it's much more sacred than that. But that's what this mural became. It became my mandala. And I wasn't sure what it was teaching me. And, but this struggle of the angel and Jacob, really, the thing that I felt like I focused on without wanting to focus on, of just trying to relax into an understanding of what was going on. And I started with looking at the faces of the angel and Jacob. And on the face of the angel was just pure compassion for this human that's struggling against her. And Jacob has his head tilted down, and it's a posture of, of being forceful. But for me, looking at it, I identified it with, all these things of reflection and even shame, of the down tilted head of, and it just got deeper and deeper into my own mind and my own emotions. Just starting out with really looking at their faces and what they were feeling through their expressions. And it's purely, my own personal, what I was getting out of it. And it just expanded from there. And for a long time, really into the 90s, I would say, because I left Paris in 88, but I've since been really privileged and had the opportunity to be able to have a work and the ability to go back to Paris almost every year, sometimes a couple of times a year. And, the routine was always, and still is, put the bags down, go to Saint-Sulpice, and just sit quietly. So I sat quietly with that mural and the emotions that I felt, what was happening in it, to tap into what I was feeling and the relationship and empathy, the empathy for both the figures there. And the more I sat with it, it expanded to the other figures in the painting that are on the sort of outskirts of it, and even nature, how it related to these two figures and the struggle. So it just kept expanding. But for a very long time, it was really just sitting, decades of sitting and being in relationship with this and having an experience of just pure connection, empathy, like I said.
Yeah,
And
it's
yeah.
fascinating. Like that's even literally meditating on this painting for decades. And I know through your research, you've found other examples of people having these crazy, like transcendental experiences with paintings. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, a couple just, I'm looking into it, and the more I talk about it too, people have spoken to me about it. Um, a friend of mine had said about a painting that he had a connection with, an experience with in a museum when he was living far from New York. And if I remember correctly, and I have to talk to him and interview him more about this and get deeper into it, but it was sort of like a grounding stone of a connection with this portrait that he was looking at, that, when times were tough or lonely or whatever, feeling of that connection of having to go see this work, and how I perceive that he had a real um, soothing and moment with, because of the connection. And I had come across a video of the actor Bill Murray talk about how when he was young, and I'm really paraphrasing here, but when he was young, he had an experience of, just feeling so inadequate, and just, I think he bombed with, in some comedy club or something that he had done anyway, and just feeling like he hit rock bottom emotionally, and where do I go from here? Not only professionally, but life-wise. And found himself on his walk in Chicago, in front of the Chicago Art Institute, and went in and saw a painting. I think it was perhaps Millet. I'm not sure. I have to look at my notes, but anyway, it was a landscape, and it was a woman in a field just toiling, doing her work, and the sun coming up in the background, and there was this instant connection with this woman in the painting, and just saying to himself, if you can get up and start your day and do your work, and then, I can do that too. The sun can come up for me each day, and I could start again. And, it's just, I, I have had the experience of, hearing people randomly talk about paintings. I had worked the last 19 years of my design career in a major museum here in New York. And, people that would go, and even friends or relatives that would come and, you know, have coffee with them later, or just people in general that I would just walk through the museum going to one of my job sites or something, and someone would mention something about a piece that they saw, or you could just look at the faces of people standing in front of a painting, a sculpture, some piece, and and just see that connection that is just, I don't know, it's so mysterious for me, and I think that's now at this point with this project, it's exploring that. It's, gotten out of my own experience and ex- and just trying to understand that and that interconnectedness that we all have, that what we're seeking something, and we're seeking that I keep using the word connection, and I can't think of another word for it, but that interconnectedness, that connection with, even not on a religious level, of someone's spirit, their essence. And art does that. And for me, with this and with Delacroix, it went further, because then I really dove into his journals, and they're just so eye-opening, mind-opening, heart-opening. So much there. His struggles with himself, humanity, making art, everything. And it just, as the years went on, it's just, there have been layers and layers and layers and layers, and discoveries, through looking at his journals, at his art, um, the people around him. I've, always loved George Sand, and reading their letters, correspondence. So just, this little thing of sitting with this mural, of trying to ground myself, find myself, has just snowballed into, I don't know what. I'm still discovering. And yeah. So,
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain it, but in such a rambling way. But that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's just all about like the connection, like you said, and that's what we have to do. We just have to connect with these paintings, and it might not happen for everybody, but when it happens, it's like, wow, there's really something going on. And like, do you believe it could be like, spiritual essence, like you said, like past lives? Like, why do we connect with some of these paintings? Are we just projecting? I mean, I guess that's all the things you're exploring right now.
Yeah, and and it can, for me, my own very personal viewpoint is grounded on Buddhist beliefs of past lives, and karma, and all of that. But I think also taking any of that, sort of, in quotes, religious projections on that, or any kind of even spiritual beliefs, as we define spiritual, um it's that again, that human connection, that thing of just not even having to have any of those beliefs, and of that, and empathy and compassion, and it's that, I think, same reason why people listen to music. I mean, that's something that does it for people too. I know for me also, connecting to music, that inner source, whatever it is, that, as long as our heart is beating, that we have in us, that, that not to simplify, but to simplify why things are so screwed up in the world right now, of, that separation. I feel like people are just so sick of it, and so looking to find that connection. And it's so simple, because it comes down to, and that's what I was thinking about when I was sitting with the mural just this past October, that I looked at it and I thought, yeah, we all just want to be happy, and not happy, besides having a good dinner or food, or even the basics of what we're entitled to, of a roof over our head, but happy within us. And how do we, where is that coming from? And that comes from connection. That comes from finding connection. And I think art in all forms is a tool, is a mandala for all of us to find that connection within ourselves, and find that inner thing of, we're all wanting the same thing. We're not different, as much as we try to make ourselves different, or our egos drive us to think that we're different or better or separate. And I have even struggled to justify working on this project, because the world is just so screwed up, and there's just so much going on. And I think to myself, why the hell am I even bothering? Why am I doing this? And I'm doing this first out of survival for myself, to be able to get up every day. And I think for all of us, why do we need art? Not only to teach us and make us aware of, things politically or whatever like that, but just on a level of beauty, and hope, for ourselves, that that we're still capable of humanity. And I needed that in October, when I last sat with it, and to just connect with that,
Yeah.
of the reason why I'm doing this.
Yeah, and I think that it's so true. Like, the world has always been screwed up. Like, I can't think of a time when things were like
Right.
peaceful, or just jolly. But also, like, art is like the ultimate form of healing. Creativity is the ultimate form of creativity, of healing. And also, it's just like dipping into that stream of creativity. It's just like you said, it's dipping into connecting to all of us, to like this higher power. And no matter whether you're religious or any religion or whatever, it's like there's something there that we can all gain from, connect to, and heal, which is what it's all
Right.
about. So it's really exciting that you're exploring, how people are having these experiences. And it doesn't really make sense, but it's interesting to gather these stories and be like, why are we like so in tune with certain pieces of work? And how would you define creativity in your own words?
Creativity for me is how I express that is by doing my work, obviously, for that. But, I think that just thinking outside of rules that are put on us by society, um, uh, I just that in itself is a creative act. Just questioning something that's put in front of you as normal or normal behavior, or this is how you should behave and this is how you should define yourself. Anything outside of that, taking control of your own expression on any level, that to me is a creative act. It doesn't have to be putting paint on a canvas or recording music, or that's the obvious. But I think that's the pushback right now. People, and I love that I see younger generations doing this, of they will not be defined in anything. I in New York, maybe it's more obvious here that I go to the cafes here and have such great conversations with for me, kids that are in their 20s, and as what they're doing, how they're living their life, their gender identification, their how they identify as far as what their career is, and what they're doing today might not be tomorrow. This is all a creative act to me. Just the refusal to accept someone else's definition of you, that's a creative act. And it can then expand on anything, on any expression. So yeah, that's creativity for me. It was just as creative for me to live my own life and not live in any way that is socially acceptable of my generation, my social place of middle class, working class kid from New Jersey. Of I defined my own life and lived my life, and still do, on my terms. And I don't mean that to be be inconsiderate of people, but that to me is my biggest creative act. And that's probably the root of my sitting with the mural, is looking and understanding that struggle, looking at the struggle between the angel and Jacob, and looking at myself, being able to sit there with that, and that that struggle too. That's part of the creative act.
I like that. No one's ever defined it as that way. It's just like ownership of what you want, of who you are, and not caring about what other people think, and just like living for ourselves and for others. I think that's a beautiful note to end on. And where can people connect with you and keep up with your writing and learn when this book comes out?
Well, like I said, I'm working on it and keep going further and further down this rabbit hole of research and writing. And I'm also now, well, have been doing drawings and things like that. And I have an Instagram account. So at Renee Josephine, I could be found there, and you could find images and things that I post that are in connection with my art, my expression. Um, I will soon be going on Substack. That's something that I want to do, but I'm so committed to and spending so much time on this project. And also, I have a very committed spiritual practice. So I feel very wrapped up in those things. And so the Substack is maybe a couple of months out from now. So the best thing would be the Instagram account, to go and follow me there and see what I post as far as what I'm doing and thoughts.
Perfect. Well, we'll share all of that in the show notes, and make sure you guys follow along. And thanks so much for sharing with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity to, like I said, ramble on. I hope it made some sense, my free form thought. But I really appreciate this. And yeah, you know how much I absolutely love what you're doing and your work.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.